Have you ever tried to build your mixed media project starting from the focal image? I mean, usually we build a few layers first, then add the focal image, or in some cases the focal image is what we add last, isn't it? So is it possible to start from that focal image and build the piece kind of around it? I thought it'd be fun to have a go, and it's just another way of looking at our art and a different way of starting. So let's have a play and see if it's possible and how we might go about it. And to explore this, I have some inspiration for you today to get you thinking about your pieces and how you would build up from the focal image first. I've picked a new stamp that I've been playing with recently to be my focal image to build this piece around. And this is actually a DIY foam stamp that I designed for my art explorers and process addicts over on Patreon. And if you want to make one yourself, then it's downloadable as a template, and then there's a full video on how to make it as well over on the Art Explorer feed in my Patreon page. And then if you join up as a process addict, then you get some more inspiration as well and another process for using it. But for your piece, pick any kind of focal image that you want to play with. And part of my template was also 2 background designs as well, so I'm going to try and incorporate these as well. They're not going to be my focal image, they will be for my background, or my after background. So let's get cracking. And I'm working on some mixed media paper for this, and check out the description below this video for the supplies that I'm using. So my approach to today's process is going to start with a bit of planning, and then I'm going to switch into organic growth where, that's kind of more intuitive style of making where you let the piece tell you where to go next as it kind of grows. And this works fine for me because I have a different art process and I can plan pieces, and which is really helpful for meeting deadlines and doing things to commission. But I can also practice the free-form approach to let a piece grow more organically. And I think a project like this is great for exercising both of these forms of art making, particularly if you're more comfortable with one form over the other, because we do tend to gravitate to one or the other. But this is a safe place to practice both types, if you want to. So for the planning side, well, you need to choose a focal image first, then decide where you're going to place it on the piece and what kind of products you want to use to make it stand out at the end. So you're going to need something that has a bit of longevity so that as you layer up and layer up and layer up, you've still got that focal point sort of jumping out from the page. Everything after planning those 3 questions, well, then that could just be pure organic growth. So for you planners out there, practice your letting go once you've answered those 3 questions. And for you non-planners out there, take a few moments beforehand to sit down and think about your focal image. Right, so let's answer some of those questions. So yeah, we've already answered what the focal image is going to be for mine, and for yours, the world is your oyster. You can pretty much put whatever you want. But I would say it should be, if you're just starting this out and you're practicing for the first time, then pick something that's going to be easy to use. So for me, my hair is perfect for this because it's a block stamp with a negative image design on it, and that kind of makes it a complete focal image. I'm not really going to have to add anything to it later to make it stand out some more, or add in more texture or more detail, because it is already there. And I can just use a block colour to stamp with, and my focal image is done. I mean, yeah, there's tons of other things that I could do with this. It's quite versatile, but I thought I would just keep it simple and pick a single colour to stamp with. The next question is where to place it, and it is the focal image, so you need to give it a good spot right from the very start. And well, I've just plumped straight for the centre of the piece. And it works because of the size of the stamp and the size and shape of the paper that I'm using. But you don't have to use the centre, you could think about other places that you could put your focal image. So 3rd question that you need to answer before you start your piece, and that's what products to use. So I went for an ink pad ink and quite a darkish neutral colour for mine, and it's a lovely dark grey colour. And then I decided that I was going to just use some bright colours around it. And that's just a simple way of making the focal image just really stand out. But you could easily reverse it and maybe use a bright colour for your focal image and then use neutrals around. or any number of combinations, so have a play and see which you like. There's nothing stopping you from doing this exercise a few times and working out what you prefer. So once I answered those 3 planning questions, the rest was pure organic growth, and I could just let myself let the art just grow as it wanted to. And you can see I've been using various different watercolour techniques. The multicoloured background was made with a watercolour paint wash, and you remember near the beginning I said I was working on a mixed media paper, so this isn't paper designed for watercolours, but it is designed to take wet materials and layers as well, so it does work with watercolours. But I do need to be a little bit careful that I don't flood it, and you also see that I haven't taped it to a board, and I know it's going to warp a little bit more than I would want it to. But sometimes I just get too excited to tape things down, and I just want to get on with it. And at the beginning when I started, I kind of wanted to leave it a bit free so that if I wanted to do drips and dribbles, I find that a lot easier to do if the paper is just there in front of me rather than taped to a cumbersome board, especially if I'm filming something. So that's generally why I don't tape things down. I will if it's a piece that's going to go somewhere else, like if I'm going to sell it or give it to somebody. But for messing around, I'm not that bothered. If you know you're going to be using watercolours and you're going to be using quite a lot of them and you don't want the warping, then maybe tape it down beforehand. Presumably you won't be filming it like I am, so it'll be a bit easier to work on a board. So what else am I using on this mixed media piece? Well, for the background stamping with my texture stamps, I use the water reactive Neocolor crayons. And they're just so easy to scribble onto the stamp, and then I give them a little spritz of water before stamping them out. And I love using this technique because it gives you multiple textures just from one stamping. You get some really interesting watercolour effects from it, and then you get these like grainier areas where there's less water. And if you also use a couple of different colours on your stamp too, then you get another variation there. But even with all that texture stamping, this piece still needed something else. So, well, yeah, I can't break free from the circles, so I decided to add some circles. And I wanted to make the circles stay in that background and keep the hair still prominent as the focal image. So I've done some rough, part circles around the back of the hair. From there, I decided to then go in and use some acrylic paint to make those circles really stand out from the overall piece. Now, if you use white acrylic paint over watercolour on a project like this, then the watercolour layer will react with that white paint and you'll get a pastel colour coming through. And particularly if you water your acrylic paint down a little bit more, so you'll get a nice tint or a lighter version of the colour that's underneath. But even that lovely lighter areas, well, it wasn't quite enough, it wasn't standing out enough for me. So I then used another fun technique with Neocolor crayons and white paint, but this time switched up the colours from the warms of the background to greens and blues. Oh, and can you spot the trick I used to make the focal image look like it belongs to the background? So the whole piece harmonises as one piece, instead of just looking like the focal image was plonked onto that background. I'll let you know at the end. It might be easier to see it in the close-ups anyway. So, can you build up a piece from the focal image upwards? Well, I think you can. What about you? Will you try this? Let me know, and of course you can always tag me in with your results over on social media because I love visiting your work. And thank you to everyone who's been doing that. It's been a real pleasure. I called this piece Rainbow Hair. I don't know, does that work? Have you got a better title? I would love to hear that too, because you always come up with way better titles than I can. So let me know if you've got a better title, then do let me know in the comments. So if you're stuck for ideas and ways of using your water reactive crayons like Neocolors, like I've been using today, or gelatos and Inktense, then watch these videos next. But before you do, Full art points for those of you who spotted the trick to bring that focal image and background together as one piece. And it's a really simple trick. It's the drips and dribbles that I used at the end. But key to this technique is to pick out a colour that's in your focal image and use that to add your drips and dribbles. So I made a grey, and I also used a little bit of white as well, because there's also some white in that image. And did you see how I made the grey with the Neo colour crayons? Well, I'll leave you to roll back to see it again if you missed it. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun making your art from the focal point up.